and we hope to see you again in the future. All right, so next up we have Michelle. Michelle, are you with us?
Yes, I put my camera on.
Amazing.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Hello. Okay, let me read your little bio and then I'll ask you to share your slides. So Michelle is an accredited librarian with 8 years industry experience in the tertiary and secondary education sectors. Michelle's professional work has ranged from law librarianship to coordinating a secondary school library to her current role as the Liaison Librarian for Art, Design and Architecture at Monash University. She is passionate about research skills development and utilising innovative pedagogies and new technologies to improve learning and engagement. All right.
Thank you. So I'm just going to put a link in the chat so I don't have to try and do it during my presentation and end up losing my places. So you can ignore it for now until I mention it a couple of slides in.
Thank you.
There it is. Alrighty, I'm going to share my screen. And now this is my first online conference presentation. So we'll see how we go. So hi everyone, as Rom said, my name's Michelle. This is my information. I don't know how much longer we'll be on Twitter, but it's there for now. Today, I really just wanted to have a bit of a casual conversation, I suppose. Hopefully we can learn a bit from each other. I wanted to talk about our collective experience as well as my personal experience, what I've learned and what I'm still learning coming to Art Librarianship earlier this year. So there's a few things there that we'll be talking about. This was the link that I just put in. This is a Padlet. I'm sure you've all seen Padlets before. I'm hoping that while I'm talking and you think of things, you might like to add them to the Padlet. I've got a few prompts there. You don't have to use them. You can comment below them or you can just add a new box for yourself. So the prompts I've got there are things you might have wished you'd known when you started in this field, favorite resources, tips or tricks, things that you do with your patrons. So hopefully at the end, we'll have a bit of a collective piece of knowledge here that we can all utilize. So the link's in the chat there and I'll refer back to it as we go. So who am I? Why am I talking to you today? I thought I'd just give you a bit of my background. I know there's the bio, but thought I'd just, help you understand why I'm talking to you about my experience. So as Romney said, I've worked in libraries for 8 years. I started in high schools as a library tech. I had a Bachelor of Law and Psychology, and that led me to a role as a law librarian at Monash University. There I finished my master's degree for librarianship and then went on to be a business and law librarian at Deakin University with 6 different business schools under my belt. But then I quit and I went overseas for like 1.5 years. And at the end of that, COVID hit. And I came back to Australia into my parents' garage and got a new job and went back to high schools, started running my own high school library, which was, again, a totally different experience, something I'd never done before. So I was winging it there. It was quite challenging doing that during all the lockdowns as well. So taking on a totally new managerial role in a new field. And during lockdown, there was about 1,600 students, 3 staff. So it was a blast, but very challenging. And in May this year, I decided to wing it again and make a change and come back to Monash University, but in art, design and architecture, which is an area I have absolutely zero background in. So it's been a bit of a challenge, been very interesting. I've been supporting all the staff and students in their research and teaching in that faculty. So feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome when I started and still, especially now having heard some of these presentations, I thought for anyone else who may have felt that way in the past or still feels that way, we could all perhaps share our own experiences briefly about who you all are. I know there's about 47 participants here, so hopefully we'll all be able to see that we're in the same boat. So I've got a little poll that we can all do. Now, I haven't used one of these polls before, so fingers crossed the technology holds up. So you can go to slido.com and type in hashtag #ArtLibs, or you can use the QR code on the screen there. Hopefully everybody can access it. I'm going to jump across to that page where I should be able to start the poll, and we should in in live time be able to see people's responses. So the first question I've got for everybody is, how long have you worked in art libraries? I wonder whether everybody here has been working in art libraries for a very long time or a very short time, or maybe we have a spread across the board. I'll give it a few minutes for everybody to be able to answer. Oh, so we're getting quite a lot of 10+ years there. And a few 1 year or less as well, which is good. I was hoping we'd get a big spread to show that everyone is, you know, coming from different backgrounds. I can't see, we've got about 21 people answering. We might not get everyone to answer, which is fine. So even there, even with only 22 people answering or so, we can already see there's a big spread. Some people have been here for a really long time and probably have a wealth of knowledge that I hope you'll put into the Padlet for us all to learn from. And then there's other people like me who have only really recently started in this area. Okay, hopefully everyone's had a chance to answer, because I do have one more poll question as well. And I have to move. The Zoom stuff really gets in the way, doesn't it? Okay, we've still got some answers coming through. So quite a lot of people have been working 10+ years in this field. Please share your knowledge in the Padlet. That's fantastic. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. If I can get across to it. Here. Okay, so we've looked at the time that you've spent. So what about subject areas? I know for myself, I'm actually working across, art, design and architecture. And there's other people who may have, like before I worked in law and business before I came here. So that's already 5 subject areas. So I'm curious, are you all multidisciplinary? Do you all work across multiple subject areas, or are you really specialized, and do you focus on art as your main area? We can see a few coming in. Great. Give you a little bit more time to. So interestingly, art only is down the bottom there, and 8+ is right up the top. And maybe I should have, and feel free to put in the chat if 8+ is too low, maybe I should have made that higher. If you have done 35 different subject areas, throw it in the chat. We can see how high it goes. I thought 8+ would at least be able to show that, yes, there's a lot of variation in people's backgrounds and people's knowledge and what people are currently doing or what they've done in the past. So maybe, I don't need to feel like an imposter. Great. Okay. Well, look, those should still probably run in the background, but I think hopefully the point there is made that we all have different backgrounds, we all have different experiences, and there's a lot of variation. And some people have just worked in arts and worked in that area for a really long time, and some people have worked across lots of different areas or are very new. So let's try and get back to my PowerPoint. Alrighty. So that sort of brings me to my next point about generalizing and specializing. So many people I've spoken with, and now from our poll as well, we've been able to see that there's people coming from non-arts backgrounds. Not all of us may have studied art history at university. Maybe you're working across multiple subject areas right now, or you've come from different subject areas in the past. So I find that something I'm always trying to do is strike that balance between, being a generalist and sort of having generalized knowledge that keeps my work, varied and makes me widely employable as well, while also sort of being specialized enough to have really valuable knowledge and being able to provide useful things to people and really do well in my roles. So I think it's always something worth reflecting on when you're thinking about your professional development or what sort of direction you want to go in and how you want to grow. Because I consider myself, I suppose, a bit of a generalist, and that often means that you're winging it a lot of the time. I feel that, like, if you want to be a generalist, you have to get really comfortable with throwing yourself in the deep end and not knowing what you're doing a lot of the time, and being comfortable with sitting with that, feeling like you're out of your depth a lot of the time. So I'm really excited about taking on these 3 new subject areas, coming from something really specialised as well, like law, when I used to be at the universities. This is going to be, it's been a challenge and it's continuing to be a challenge, but something I'm really excited to take on. So I thought, talking about challenges, I would give you guys a bit of an idea of the things that I hadn't anticipated that turned out to be very unique to art librarianship, that I've noticed at least, coming from an outsider's perspective. And reflecting on these sort of helped me figure out the context of this role. So having a look at the collections, there were so many different things that I'd never heard of before, and things that were just very varied. Such a wide range of different and unique objects, and not only things that we hold in the library, but things that people I work with, the students and the staff, need to find and use in their research. So for example, on the slide there, I've got a picture of an artist book. That was totally new to me. It now sounds silly that I wouldn't have ever heard of an artist book, but artist book as a work of art was something that I'm still, wrapping my head around in some ways. It's a special collection that we have. And figuring out, what is an artist book exactly? How does this work with all the different types of things we're doing? Object-based learning with artist books is something that's come up as well. So there's lots of questions that having this different kinds of collections has presented to me. How do I source these and purchase them? How do we get them catalogued? And how do we organise them, store them? How do we provide access to these types of different things? And of course, how do we reference them? So those are many things that I'm still figuring out. And of course, things like the fact that many of these types of things aren't digitally available. And, at the university I'm at, there's a digital first sort of policy. So how does all of these print materials fit into this wider university policy? I'll be posing a lot of questions and not providing a huge amount of answers. So feel free to share your thoughts. Output was something else as well. So traditional outputs, of course, we might be used to journal articles and those types of things, but there doesn't seem to be as many journal articles in this faculty. More book chapters and essays, magazine articles, commissioned reports. But then I learned about non-traditional research outputs, which something, again, I wasn't hugely familiar with. So I've got a picture there of a non-traditional research output from one of the academics here at the Monash faculty. This is the Hotel on Eastlink by Callum Morton. And so figuring out how these types of things interplay with the standard knowledge I had around publishing and impact and copyright. How can the impact of something like this be measured? It can't really be measured in citation counts or H indexes. So spoiler, it's all a bit complicated, but, I've been learning a lot about non-traditional research outputs. And the same with PhD students as well. They're not doing a traditional thesis a lot of the time. They're, creating physical objects or exhibitions and writing about them in more of a reflective way, rather than that traditional sort of thesis way. So thinking about what are their needs and how can I best support them on that journey. People, of course, the people are different. People are different everywhere, of course, but, and they've been really, really wonderful getting to know all the new people in the library and in the faculty. But of course, I have to try to understand their different kinds of expertise and different backgrounds, the different levels of knowledge when conducting research. Many people are practitioners that have been, experts in the field for many, many years and may not have academic backgrounds. There's a lot of different needs from what they need from the library. And of course, from the student aspect of things, different expectations about what they really want out of their university experience. Coming from somewhere like law, where students were often banging down your door to get library assistance with referencing and research, and they were really expecting to come and do that type of stuff and write essays. Whereas working with art students, that's not the type of stuff that they're really interested in doing, and trying to figure out the best way to support them and link in the library with the types of things that they're wanting to do has been a challenge as well. The departments, of course, each of them are unique and distinct, but there's also really so much overlap and no clear delineation, I find, between some of them in many ways, because there's so much interdisciplinary work going on. Researchers from different departments are always collaborating. So trying to wrap my head around that has also been a challenge. Thinking about things like where does architecture end and design begin? If you're designing a building or a city or a neighborhood or a space or an interior, where's the line between architecture and design? A fine arts installation, even that hotel picture that I showed you before, often includes design and architectural elements. Even the artist books could be considered fine arts objects, but they also fit with design components, with typology and communications. And that's, of course, not even touching on the multiple interdisciplinary research things that go on with other faculties, such as engineering and IT and health. So there's so much going on that I'm still really grappling with that concept of how it all sort of fits together in a bigger picture. And there's a little image there of some of the research that's going on. And finally, just coming to a new workplace. I mean, that's par for the course with any new job, isn't it? So new job, new processes, new goals, new budgets, new ways of doing, and trying to make sure that you understand that as well. So I thought about all of those things and tried to piece together the greater context of what I'm doing here. What's the organisation and the library and the role entail? Who am I working with and what are their needs? And then now I start to work on understanding what value I can bring to that. How can I utilise my skills and develop and grow and do a really good job here? So what I thought I could talk about now was some handy techniques, some practicalities of what I've been doing while I've been winging it the last 6 months, trying to piece all this together and fit myself into this role. And hopefully, even if you're one of the people that's been around for 10 plus years in art librarianship, maybe this could be helpful if you were taking on a new project in a new area that you weren't used to. Or hopefully there'll be something that you guys can take from these techniques. So relationships, everyone knows, I think, yes, you've got to develop relationships. Some of the things I found helpful, though, in developing those relationships so far, the email introductions, especially with everyone being virtual, if someone else facilitates that for you, I found it to be really powerful. So when I've had other academics, say, for example, email people to introduce me rather than me introducing myself, I found that's had really great benefits. Having a purpose or something to offer, I found in our library, we've got a cafe. So even if I just offer, hey, why don't you come over and I'll buy you a coffee and you can tell me about what you do. Everybody seems really happy to come over and get out of their office and stretch their legs and have a coffee and a chat, rather than me just introducing myself and asking questions. So that's been really great. Connecting with key people, yes, we often connect with, in my job at least, the key academics and the key stakeholders. But also connecting with, the professional staff, the administrative people, the people that work with the students, the people that work in the research office, all these sort of people on the outside, I guess, of like us, like the librarians that work to support. Connecting with them has been incredibly helpful. They've been so generous with their time and they've been able to really help me piece together that bigger picture of how everything fits and help me get started, working in this area. So it's really worthwhile connecting with everyone, not just the sort of key people. Attending meetings and events, yes, but when you can do it in person, I found it's, and I'm sure you all know this as well, but being in person has made such a difference. Even the other day, they were doing Tai Chi in the courtyard and having coffee afterwards, and being able to be there face to face and have a chat over something shared, and those sort of conversations that you have just really build those relationships so much easier than trying to connect over a screen, looking at each other's Zoom faces. So if you ever get an opportunity to do something in person, jump at it. Of course, asking questions. I ask way too many questions. I probably start to annoy people with how many questions I ask. But thinking about asking, what's worked well in the past with, other people that might have done this role, or other things you've done with the library, or what's your goals, where are you headed in the future, and trying to understand what they need and then how you can support that. And hopefully by doing all of this stuff, you're cultivating an image or a perception of yourself as a professional and capable and helpful person that they know that they can come to whenever they have sort of questions that they think maybe you could help with. And hopefully from that builds the ability to support what they're doing. Resources. There's so many resources, my God. And again, please put some in the Padlet if you have some handy resources. I've found some great ones, but I'm always looking for more. This group, of course, ArlisANZ, is an amazing resource that I didn't know about 6 months ago. So I'm so glad to be here and joining all of you. There's library guides, there's websites. Digging through old staff documents, I found some great stuff from like 2014 buried in a Google Drive that's been really helpful for me to understand context and why things are the way they are now in this role. Talking to knowledgeable colleagues, using social media and blogs and professional organizations. And not just stuff that's made specifically for librarians, but things that are made for students and for staff and for your users to understand, where they're coming from. Resources from other institutions as well, all incredibly helpful. Using what you have, of course, not reinventing the wheel. We often have to hit the ground running and we have limited time. So for example, I had a week to put together a video that was outdated because it referenced a lot of things to do with COVID that weren't relevant anymore. And instead of refilming the entire video, because a lot of it was really, really good, I was able to just snip out those parts, film myself and snip me back in. So it sort of looked like my predecessor and I were having a conversation in this video, despite the fact we'd never actually worked together in this role. So if you think outside the box, sometimes you can save yourself a bit of time. Obviously using what coming from different backgrounds and different experiences, they are really useful, transferable skills and all that. So often I say, well, I may not be, an expert in architecture or design or anything yet, but I am an expert in library stuff. So rely on that and rely on your strengths. Sometimes you need a bit of a confidence boost. So relying on things that you're good at until you can fill those gaps and build those other skills is a great way to get started and not feel too overwhelmed. And recording and reflecting, which is sort of what this presentation got me to do. So thank you for that. Creating a clear plan of what you want to achieve so you don't feel lost along the way is really helpful. Knowing what are the gaps, what do I want to do, what do I need to learn. Setting manageable goals and tasks, of course, so you're not overwhelmed. I like to break it up into short-term goals, mid-term settings and different due dates and all those types of things. I won't go into it in depth, but if you like making lists like I do, it's a great way of keeping them all really well organized. And this is just an example of the meticulous records that I was talking about. So this is a living document. I actually start a blank document whenever I start a new big thing, like a new role like this. So this is the table of contents of a Google Doc. That was blank 6 months ago. And it's pretty much any time I learn something that I need to refer to in the future, something that's helpful, whether it's just, overall context of things or step-by-step practicalities, everything goes in the document. And by the end, I've got a really amazing reference document that I can go back to anytime. It's continually growing and changing. And then one day, if I ever do end up leaving, I've got a handover document ready to go for the next person. So that's it. That's all I have. I feel like I've posed a lot of questions and talked about my experience winging it over the last 6 months. Perhaps you have questions as well, whether for me or just for the general concept of being an art librarian that you want to talk about in the chat or now. Otherwise, please share your answers and your thoughts and go to the Padlet, even if it's not right now, over the course of the conference, I hope by the end of it, we'll have a collaborative resource that we can all rely on to, utilize each other's shared knowledge, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that know a lot of really great stuff. So thank you for listening.